All right. 4.4, solving quadratic equations by factoring. We're still learning the four methods. What we're going to be learning today is the AC hard method. All right. And then we have covered all methods. All right. Using the AC hard method, hard AC. All right. So the polynomials of the form ax squared plus bx plus c, where a does not equal to 1. If a did equal to 1, then we will be using the AC easy method. But that's not the case here. In other words, there'll be some other number than 1. All right, so the steps is you multiply AC, so you're going to take A and C, go multiply them. Then you're going to find the factors of AC, whose sum is B. In other words, the factors of that will give me this number right here. Then you're going to replace the middle term with the magic numbers, and then you factor by grouping. Okay, so we're using sort of like the easy AC method a little bit, where we find the factors to get the middle term. Then once we rewrite it, then we got to actually use factor by grouping. That's the reason why I make this hard, because there's a lot more steps involved. All right, so let's look at our first example. All right. What we have here is A is 2 and C is 6. All right, and you notice there's no GCF. All right, so what we're going to do is you got to do 2 times 6, which is 12. All right, so we want the factors of 12. So we want factors of 12 that will give me 7. That if I add, it would give me 7. All right, so the factors are 1 and 7 are what? 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. So if I add, that gives me 13, 8. This gives me 12. That gives me 7. So there's the ones I want. All right. So now what we do is we're going to rewrite this as 2a squared plus 3a plus 4a plus 6. Okay, so now we go group. Here we're going to factor out in A. So I get 2a plus 3. Here I'm going to factor out a positive 2. So I get 2a plus 3. These are the same. So I rewrite that. Cross them out. And what's left over, put within its own parentheses. And there we go. Let's try another example. All right, A is 4. All right, so we got 4 times 5, which is 20. One of the factors of 20 that if I subtract will give me 1. Because remember, that's what B is. All right, so we got 1 and 20, 2 and 10. Does 3 go? No, 4. That's 4 and 5. All right, I think those are it. So if I subtract, I want 1. So there we go. So I take, now this is 4x squared. All right, now we got 4 and 5. All right, so do I do, it'll be minus 4x plus 4x, excuse me, minus 5x minus 5. Now, why did I put the plus here and why did I put the minus there? Well, if you notice, if I add, I have to subtract these, all right? So that gives me the 1. But remember, when you're subtracting, one must be positive, one must be negative. So if I make, so in other words, since this is a negative here, that means the larger number 5 has to be negative. So that's the reason I put the negative with the 5. Okay. All right, now group them. All right, so I can factor out a 4 and an x. So it gives me x plus 1. Here I can factor out negative 5 and get x plus 1. These are the same, so I rewrite them. I can cancel them out. So then what's left over, I'll put within its own parentheses. 4x minus 5. And there you go. All right, let's do another one. Whoops. Sorry about that. Hit the wrong button. All right, now here we're going to apply a GCF before we actually do the hard AC. Notice here, what number can go into 35 and 5? Well, that's 5. So I'm going to factor out 5. All right. Now, I use the easy AC because if I do 30 times 5, that's 150. So what are the factors of 150 that if I subtract will give me 5? Well, that could be quite a while. But here, if I factor out that, makes my number smaller. So 6 times 1 is 6. So what are the factors of 6? That if I subtract, will give me 1. So the factors of 6 are 1 and 6. If I subtract, that gives me 5. Nope. 2 and 3. If I subtract, will it give me 1? Yes. So there we go. Now remember, I've got to keep the 5. So I'm going to rewrite this 6y squared. So this middle term, I'm going to rewrite as 2y and 3y. Now, which one must, now see, we are subtracting, so therefore, one must be positive, one of these must be positive, and one of these must be negative. Well, since this is a positive 5, that means what? Well, and I'm looking at the wrong part. Since this is a positive 1, I had a brain fart, so it's clearing now, so I should be all right. All right, so we did the factors of 2 and 3. We want to subtract them to get 1. We did. Now, since we are subtracting, one must be positive and one must be negative. And this tells me that the larger number must be positive. So that means the positive goes here. Whoops. What happened there? Positive goes there. And the minus goes there. And then we have a minus 1. All right. So we're going to factor this by grouping. So I'm going to ignore the 5 for right now. So we're going to 6y squared minus 2y plus 3y minus 1. So I'm going to group. So here I can factor out a 2y. So it gives me 3y. 3y minus 2. Nope, excuse me, just y. Oops, I made a mistake. Hang on. Let's go back. So let me erase this. Eraser. All right. All right, here we go. So I'm factoring out a 2y. So it gives me 3y minus 1. Here, there's nothing in common. All right, so I just automatically just put a plus 1 outside. All right, since I'm bringing out a 1, positive 1, nothing changes. These are the same, so let me rewrite that. Cross them out. What's left over is 2y plus 1. All right, now don't forget we have a 5 from the beginning, so I got to make sure I include that as well. And there we go. All right, let's do one more. All right, I can factor out a 5. X, 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 no, Y, Y, Y. All right, there's Y's in all three terms. I can factor out a Y, and the Y with the smallest exponent, so that'll be squared. So I get 2x squared. All right, then I get plus x, y, and I get minus, let's see, 5 would be 6. I'm taking out 2y, so that's y squared left over. All right, so now I take AC, which is 2 times 6, which is 12. Okay, factors of 12, that if I add, will give me 1. Well, we know that's going to be 3 and 4. All right, so here I'm going to ignore this. I'll put this back at the end. We're just going to focus on this right here. So I have 2x squared plus, oh, hang on, let's just do 3xy, 4xy, and then we got minus 6y squared. All right, the reason why we leave these blank is we got to figure out which one's which, because here we're not adding, excuse me, we are subtracting. I want to subtract, that gives me 1. All right, subtraction means one must be positive, one must be negative. The positive tells me the larger number is positive, so the positive goes with the 4, and the minus goes with the 3. So now we can go ahead, group these, factor out a 2x in this first one, so that gives me a x minus 3y. Here I can factor out a 2y, positive 2y. So when I do that, I get a 2x and minus 3y. All right. You notice these are not the same. So that means I made a mistake. If I look back here, I cannot factor out a 2 because 2 is not common in both of them. So there should not be a 2 right there. So therefore, the 2 should still be there. Now they are the same. So I'll rewrite that. All right, cross them out. What I have left over, I have an x plus 2y. And don't forget the GCF from the very beginning. So I'll put that right in the front. And there you go.